Hello, Erica Kelling here with your Chat and Chill podcast. This is my second episode of doing my podcast. And today I want to introduce some wonderful girlfriends of mine, some very strong feminine energy with me. Sam, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell the audience a little bit more about who you are, and then we'll move over to Maria.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Samantha Lesser. I am actually soon to be Erica's sister-in-law. So I'm engaged.
She already is my sister already, but logistically speaking.
Yeah, so I've been dating her brother for about 2 years, so I am a fiance. I am a sales girl for life, I will tell you.
I will buy whatever you're selling.
And I would say I have a really close knit group of girlfriends. So I would consider myself a girlfriend in my heart of hearts. And I would say that for about 15 years now, unofficially, I've been on the path of just understanding people better and understanding myself better in hopes of ultimately connecting on a deeper level and experiencing a more meaningful life.
Wonderful. Yes. And Sam has been, we connected right away at our camping trip.
Yeah,
fell in love with her. Definitely fell in love with her, and just the conversations that you and I can have. Like, I just love connecting, and I feel when we are connecting, because you know how when you come around a bunch of people and then you just like meet up with the person and you're just like, there's that connection. Sam's a very good connector. So I feel that energy. Okay, Maria, she is our super guest because she is the one who's been on the podcast the most out of everyone. So Maria, please reintroduce yourself, and then we'll talk about a little bit about our topic today.
Yeah, I'm Maria. I just had the honor of meeting Sam for the first time a few days ago, and I'm really excited for this relationship that's going to form. I've known Erica for a very long time, fell in love with her spirit years ago, and I haven't let go.
Yeah, we're like, let's do something together. I don't know what it is, but we're gonna do something.
It's happening, and I love it.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm back for more.
Yes, and astounding reviews from everyone who watched the last podcast of attachment and detachment was just the combination of conversation, and that's really what I'm bringing to this podcast is real people being vulnerable. And if anyone knows the power of vulnerability, it is the feminine energy, because that is the feminine energy. So really, the conversation today is one of my ultimate favorites, because this is kind of how it started, was from the last podcast, was talking about what is our patterns. And for you and I, it's always been the wounded masculine and having to understand what it is within us and where we got it, and really just uprooting these belief systems and ways in which we believe we should show up, especially as being core feminine energy. Mm-hmm. So that is our conversation for today, is really what is the masculine energy. And what I want to preface here is when we talk about the masculine and feminine energy, we're not talking about gender. So when I say masculine, I'm not saying the male gender. And when I say feminine, when we have this conversation today, it's not just the female gender. So just for the audience and everyone, we all have a percentage of masculine and feminine energy that is within us. And so a lot of talking about a lot of our core energy, which for me, my core energy has always been the feminine energy, but I grew up in a very masculine dominant household. So I had all brothers, and so I kind of want to just go through and Sam, we'll kind of start with you and just talking about the environment that you have come into when it comes to this masculine energy, and tell us a little bit about yourself when it comes to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Unlike the two of these ladies, I grew up in, definitely a woman-dominated home. It was just my dad, and he had to put up with had the pleasure of dealing with my mom, my sister, and I. And so, in some ways, that feminine energy was definitely encouraged and just inevitably part of my heart. But in other ways, just in, experiences as you continue to grow up and try new things and go out into the world, I had I've had, and I continue to, a number of different experiences with masculine energy, just as we all do. And of course, the wounded masculine as well, which we're going to talk a little bit more about today. But yeah, I would say the more life I experience, the more I see how this has been an integral part in who I am and who I'm coming to be. And I think it's an important thing to have a discussion about. So
yes, and that's interesting because I love having this dynamic of, having more of the feminine energy, but also still understanding and being able to see the wounded masculine within yourself and where you learned it.
Absolutely.
Whereas someone coming from, my household, it was really all 4 brothers, full masculine. So it's like I didn't stand a chance. I didn't even know that there was that feminine side. So Maria, tell us a little bit about your environment and kind of your structure.
Yeah, I didn't grow up with a lot of males in my life. It was just my dad, but he was a very dominating role model in my life, what I thought was my masculine role model. Definitely grew up in a hostile environment without going for, too deep into it. He created this unsafe environment for me. And because of that, I lacked trust in the masculine. And it created a wound in my masculine energy with the lack of trust that I had in him. And that became a rooted, deep need of wanting to heal myself from the energy that I had grown up in. My feminine energy was also very confused because, my mother role model was also unsafe in her environment, and that created a very depolarized lack of just this crazy chaotic environment within me that I thought created
so unsafety
balance.
From both the masculine and the feminine, which is okay. Yeah.
And because of those roots, I grew up not trusting the masculine energy within and without. So I became this resentful, almost angry person towards men because of that lack of trust within the energy. And that became my path of learning and growing, and how can I heal that within me?
And what is the awareness of the patterns that keep coming up for why am I wounded? Where is this coming from? And it was very similar to really how I grew up, because I was in an alcoholic home. So we have, the DNA in my family is really passed down from generation to generation with alcoholism. Mm-hmm. And so if anyone has dealt with addictions or anything of that nature, or even watching your father figure, fight this battle of alcoholism, you can see that the wound that is there, it really is, he is suppressing and has been suppressing his masculine wounds within him, and he did it through the form of drinking, which then obviously changed his personality. That was a lot of the environment that I grew up in. And then when we look at the dynamics of, so for example, my mom was my first representation of what I understood feminine energy to be. And of course, her feminine energy has also been suppressed, being in a wounded masculine environment. And so she was all I knew when it came to feminine energy. She was my role model for feminine energy. And then obviously with my father, having that really domineering, that aggressive. And when we talk about masculine energy, I want to get both of your perceptions on, what does masculine energy look like when we talk about the wounded masculine, but also what does that healing masculine look like as well? Because I know Sam play on words, and we call it, it's trying to figure out how are we going to explain this today and really get the audience to understand this whole dynamic of the energies. And we called it toxic masculine, wounded masculine, unhealthy, healthy. So I really liked Sam brought up where it's okay, wordplay is that when you call it the healthy masculine, then you're assuming that it's healed, that it's completed. Whereas healing masculine, it really is that side of us that is naturally within each of us, but without the wound. So without that part of it. But I think, Maria, I kind of want to get your input on when you talk about wounded masculine, give me some words, give the audience some words as far as what you mean by that. We'll kind of go around and get perspective.
Yeah, I mean, just from what I grew up aggression, dominance, very direct, little emotion, harshness, controlling, closed off. That's my experience with the wounded masculine. And because that's what I saw growing up, that's what I became at a young age. That's what the wounded masculine is to me, all of those dominant traits and characteristics that could be positive, but when they're used for negative, that's when they become a wound, when they're not healed.
And this is what we consider our authority figure, right? So whenever it's a wounded masculine, it feels, at least for me, it feels like more of the control over than it does just like the collaborative approach of like, okay, we're all growing together versus it's like a hierarchy of power structure that in my family, at least, where it was, God, dad, mom, then it was pretty much the hierarchy of, okay. And even it's in that order.
God was perceived as a dominant, controlling figure in our household too. So the male or the masculine energy as a whole played a deep impact in who we were growing up. It even made me fear God.
Yeah, well, that was the point, right?
Right, exactly.
If you don't behave this way, then there are consequences.
Exactly.
And we were raised to be good kids, not necessarily, living within these standards of society versus healthy kids, right? So it was like, as long as you have an obedient child, you're parenting well, where, and the structures of society obviously have really been a huge influence over what even our men deal with when they think of masculine energy and masculinity and really redefining what that even looks like for our men when we do talk about gender roles. But Sam, can you talk a little bit about your idea of when you imagine wounded masculine, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've definitely experienced in different environments a lot of what Maria has shared just about like that like lunge or pursuit of control. And I really think that that's a lot of what it can come down to is, in a broken world, we see a lot of men who haven't been given the tools or the resources to live a healthy life, emotionally speaking. I've seen it at least a lot in my life. These reactions come from mainly fear. And so out of fear, there are like just these grasps, if you will, for control or for dominion over the situation, however you want to word it. And it's usually angry, it's usually aggressive, because for whatever reason, as a society, we've glorified that and said that that is an okay way of, attaining control. But for whatever reason, again, being vulnerable and saying, hey, I'm actually really afraid of what you're doing here has not been. So similar things in terms of, maybe how the fear has manifested. But I guess what I would say is I've seen a lot of actions and decisions made out of fear. So
yes, and I think you hit the nail on the head there is really the aggressive nature when and I'm not just talking about, again, the gender, the masculine gender, but even when I'm in my wounded masculine and when I react to my emotions, sometimes it can be that aggressive. And that's what I saw from my father was, the more aggressive you are and the tougher that you are. And, that really competitive lifestyle that I grew up with, competing against men my whole life. And, I got my dad's attention most of the time.
Absolutely.
Not when I was happy and fun. And, I didn't really get his attention when I wasn't happy.
Right.
I got his attention whenever I was either in trouble or fighting. So it was kind of like this addiction of, I want my dad to pay attention to me. Or like when I was playing
his
sports.
His affection and love. Yeah.
Yes,
his approval.
of just getting it. So it was kind of like these mixed messages of like, I'm loved when I'm in my wounded masculine and I'm essentially not loved when I'm not, when I'm in my healthier masculine or my healthy even energies. So I kind of grew up thinking I needed to compete all the time. I needed to prove myself in order to get the attention and affection that I need in order to feel loved. And so as you can kind of see, the dynamics of even having relationships with people and needing affection, needing attention, needing that, because I never really got it from my father. And so, and of course, my dad and I have a really great relationship now, but everything that I've learned up to this point with my own wounded masculine, and the other things that I really wrote down as far as, you know, what the wounded masculine in ourselves look like is really that culture that we've created of hustle, right? So I don't know, you know, watching your fathers or, you know, the men are supposed to play this, you know, a healthy masculine is the protector role and the structure. And, you know, that's our healthy masculine side of us, organizing and logical, the thinking part of who we are. And so when we create this culture of hustle, a lot of the wounded masculine, especially that I've seen and I've been learning to balance a lot more, is that idea that I have to overcompensate, constantly be driving towards achieving something, this idea of what success looks like, which is money and power for some reason, climbing up the ranks. So I think that the idea as well of power that we have in this society just needs to be redefined. Like the idea of how we get our power, how we get, you know, what are these structures of society that we're all living in that are no longer working for us. So, and the other things is like, you know, I have like, you speak loudly and aggressively. When I was younger and I was a little bit, I was taught that if someone hits you and it hurts, you hit them back harder. And that's how you stand up for yourself. And that's how you get this respect in you. So I always grew up fighting my brothers. My parents would even be like, if you guys need to go handle that outside, go outside. So we had permission to fight each other, to be like, you guys deal with it. And if it needs to be aggressively, which it was in our household,
with 4 brothers, then
that's what you did. Like I had no idea that you can like just sit down and have a conversation about something and talk about your feelings.
There's no communication, no.
So it's really that suppression.
Hold it all down, suppress your feelings.
Yes, of like, okay. And the other things that I remember my brothers always saying was like, emotions are for pussies, or man up, or, you know, grab your balls and, you know, man up. It was always like these phrases. When I was younger, like I honestly thought I had a penis for the longest time, just because, I mean, I had nothing else to compare it to. So I would try to pee standing up. I would try to spit the furthest with my brothers. And again, it was that competitive environment that was normal for me. I had no idea that you just didn't punch people when you know, got upset. So I was a little rebel in society, because I'm like, isn't this how you're supposed to get to the top or achieve whatever you want to? So now when we talk about, I think one of the other things with masculine energy, or the wounded masculine, is, you know, you're in your wounded masculine when what? Like, what would you guys say as far as, you know, that you're feeling maybe that aggression or whatever's coming up with that energy? Like, how do you know when you are in your wounded masculine?
I guess when I feel triggered, when I can't control a situation, a conversation, when I don't have control for me sometimes, that to me is wounded masculine. When I can't control my environment, when I can't, sorry.
No, that makes sense, because control.
I mean, it's this conversation. I mean, it's bringing up a lot of wounds for me, you know, so I'm trying to understand my feelings. It's making me a little emotional. So,
emotions.
And you know what? This right here means that I still have a lot of wounds to heal. Because it's not that I'm being triggered. I feel like emotions are coming up, talking about my family, my dad.
And so this is beautiful, because thank you for being vulnerable, first of all. The power of vulnerability, feminine energy, is the idea of, when we were younger, when those emotions did come up, it wasn't ever okay to talk about them. So I love that you're feeling it, and you're able to admit that, like, I'm feeling things, and I felt out of control because when I was younger, I wasn't able to just express it and be accepted for being sad right now, or I don't like this situation. I think that's the biggest part of suppressing our own feminine energy, and being taught to do that.
And that's what I was taught to do, is to suppress my feelings. You grew up in an environment with brothers. I grew up in an environment with sisters. My dad was the dominant figure. He controlled us. We had to play our role as the feminine, cleaning, the cooking, the be quiet, shut up, your feelings don't matter. That's what I grew up in. I didn't grow up in like this competitive, like go out and take the world, grab your balls, don't be a pussy. I grew up in shut up, sit down and clean, shut up, sit down and cook.
You have a role.
That was my role. So it took me a long time to learn how to express my feelings and emotions, because for the longest time I thought they didn't matter. I thought they were irrelevant. Your feelings don't matter. Stress doesn't exist. Anxiety is all made up. Get in the kitchen and cook. Get in, take care of your brothers and sisters. Do the womanly thing. That's what I grew up in. So my feminine was stepped on. I was so confused, dishonored, suppressed.
Robbed of it almost.
Robbed of it, yeah. I didn't know who I was and who I was supposed to be, because I feared and resented the masculine, but I didn't know my feminine. So there was this unbalanced confusion between me for so long. And it wasn't until my 30s that I started realizing, like, what the hell's happening? Like, this is
what
not...
What is this other side of life?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be this female woman, strong, powerful, but what does that even mean? Because I don't even know... I grew up with the lack of it. I didn't know what that was. And my mother, the most amazing woman I know, also was suppressed her whole life. So she, at her 60s now, is starting to figure out who she is. So that's...
And doesn't that sound... I mean, I'm glad you're opening up about that, because that's my mom too. Like, she's like, okay, fuck all this like masculine things that I dealt with,
right.
Even though she hasn't really dealt with it. She... seeing her as my role model for feminine, I think the reflection back that I get from her is that it's weak. Like,
right.
I've always looked at my mom as being like weak because my dad was so dominant
right.
and, powering over, and it's like she couldn't get out of this cycle. And it was just kind of like, so when I look at feminine energy, this is kind of the work that I'm doing, is how do I increase my healthy feminine energy and be aware of even my wounded feminine, because the wounded feminine energy comes straight from the wounded masculine energy. So
absolutely.
And I think that, when you talk about having this energy and being aware of the feminine, I mean, I think right now on the planet itself, the transition, this new reset that we're going through, if you're into astrology at all, Mother Gaia, if we could remember, is a sentient being. Like, she is her own consciousness. So as she continues to evolve, a lot of the energies on the planet are also changing. Yeah. And so with this masculine, and I think we're all rising, all of our feminine energy is rising so much on the planet right now, that as women and having the core energy of the feminine energy, I feel like it's, we already know how to work with these energies because we're feminine. We have that core intuition. Like, we already know how to essentially follow it. Whereas our men have suppressed it, even, not all men, but there's a lot of suppression of the feminine energy, where I feel like it's kind of our responsibility to lead by example with playing and really understanding more of this feminine energy that's rising on the planet. So, I mean, that's always been like I can see it. I can see the collaboration of women that are coming together, the communities that are being created. And so that is like the co-creation of the feminine energy, is really that togetherness and collaboration. Now, Sam, tell me a little bit about when you're in your wounded, like when you feel like you're wounding, when you're in your wounding and you're going down that route, what are some things that you notice about yourself?
Sure. Taking steps towards marriage with Sean, Erica's younger brother, has certainly shined light on all of the ways that, I still have to grow, or thus far, many of them. I'm sure there will be more to come. And one of them happens to be, or that was glaringly obvious, if you will. I will respond to Sean when he comes to me with something. For instance, it's usually around getting something done. So like you said before, this, attitude of achieving. So Sean will come to me and say, hey, I know you really needed help with that. I wasn't able to get it done. I've got this and this and this going on. And rightfully so, he does have a full plate. He's not making crazy excuses up or anything. But I will respond similarly to how I would when I was maybe 15 or 16, like I picture little Samantha, and I'll say something really short without thinking along the lines of, well, you probably should have thought of that the first 3 times I asked you to help me with it. Or something really aggressive like that,
real snappy, real aggressive.
Yeah, not helpful to the situation, not loving in response to my partner or in anyone, and just a complete black and white response in terms of how I would respond to, let's say if Erica came to me and said, hey, I know I said I would do that thing for you, but I'm just really swamped. My immediate reaction to Erica would be, as a woman usually, would be, hey, I understand things come up. I'm queen of overbooking myself. Let's talk next week and see what we can do.
That's interesting. So you're more flexible when it comes to
absolutely
the feminine than it would be having that with a male counterpart.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's probably a part of my heart, and wrongfully so, but this is where I'm at, that responds with the attitude of, you people, you men have done this to me my whole life. I'm going to hand it right back to you the first chance I get.
A little bit of resentment.
Yeah, resentment.
Definitely, I resonate with that.
So not conscious, but, once you hear the harshness and the aggressiveness of those words leave your mouth, or you see the look on your partner's face, or the hurt or damage, or even worse, you see their hesitation to come to you in the future because of your aggressive or just like unkind in general response. You realize I still have some more work to do here. So I would say, yeah, that's probably been one of the most recent and most unavoidable, if you will. There's no, covering that up or pretending like it's not a problem right now. Ways that I see that unhealthy or wounded masculine energy triggered in me.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense because I totally resonate with that whole resentment part, because it's kind of like we've been raised to believe that you do have to raise up your masculine energy in order to be successful in society.
Absolutely.
Right? Like working for corporate America, or like playing the politics and playing the power game, and running after this idea of, again, success of climbing that ladder and getting that control, and even like the hierarchies of corporate America, where again it's like it's a title that gives you power, whereas power is within. Like power is that feminine energy of love and compassion, and your partner coming to you and you having that forgiveness and loving
Grace
tone. But it's so natural for us to rise up. Like even when my husband and I have conflict, I rise up with my masculine and like bring it up and approach it. And I'm like very structured with my words, and I'm very organized with how I want this conversation to go. And I forget about the gentle feminine part of me that the wounded masculine needs. Like for the wounded masculine to heal, you need that balance of the feminine energy. So,
and I would even go as far to say that just the masculine needs, like wounded or not, like there's a reason that like we have been sewn together with these, different strengths. And it is to use them, with those men who are, hurting especially. And I think those who maybe have, started to pursue healthfulness.
And that's a good polarity, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
There's masculine and feminine in each one of us, and that's why it's important to be in your core energy and develop your core energy. So if you came into this world 60% feminine energy and you're suppressing that to be more masculine, you're throwing off your polarity with your partner. And having a polarity of, like, because I come in with so much masculine in my life, and that's kind of been my default, it ruins my polarity with intimacy with the man. And any of us who are like dating or in marriage or anything, if you're not in and if you are not nurturing your core energy of who you truly are, then you're throwing off that polarity, not only in yourself, but then it comes out in your exterior world too. So that's a really good example, because if you have, I think cultures of every culture that's out there talks about this yin and yang, or this, positive and negative, and the polarity side of things. So as women, again, I think it's just like this is the perfect timing as we're learning how to work with these feminine energies that are just coming up. It's important that we nurture our own energies, but still keep that healthy masculine.
Absolutely.
Or healing masculine.
For sure.
Because that healing masculine, let's talk a little bit more about what the healing masculine even looks like. Because a lot of people, it's not just, we talk about this wounded masculine, it's that dominance and control and authority and power over. Let's kind of get into a little bit of what does it look like when you're in your own healthy healing masculine energy. What would you say?
Yeah, I think just becoming aware of my wounds first. Like when I become a people pleaser, becoming aware of like, okay, why am I pleasing them? What do I need to gain from them? What's the trauma behind it? I think awareness is huge in this, and just understanding what your dominant energy is, and if you're suppressing an energy to please someone else. So when you are aware of what you're doing internally and what your energy is, you can start to integrate the opposite energy and start to heal that within you. I've learned how to do that throughout my life just by becoming aware of my surroundings. My husband has been a huge teacher for me. So he has brought out my feminine energy more. And I've surrendered my masculine energy to him because he wasn't dominant like my dad. He wasn't aggressive like my dad.
You developed that trust.
Yeah, I learned how to trust because he taught me how to trust. Not everyone is like how I grew up. So surrendering that side of me and letting go and allowing him to take control of that, not take control, but kind of
leading,
take the wheel,
like
steer,
being the direction,
letting him be that male energy, that dominant, positive energy that he needs to be, so I can start working on my feminine energy, and we have this beautiful integrated energy between us. That's when you know that you're healing, because you're allowing both energies to play the role that they need to. Mm-hmm. And I think by just allowing that to happen naturally and not suppressing it, not judging it, not trying to control it, and just allowing it to happen in a natural, beautiful way, the energy just flows. And everything that you need to heal starts coming up and showing you, why are you triggered? Why are you being aggressive? Why are you this? Why are you that? And when you start understanding that side of you, you start letting it go. And that's helped me a lot throughout this process of healing my energies within me.
And I love how you put that, because when you talk about the masculine, what I'm hearing you saying is like the masculine is the giver energy, whereas the feminine is the receiver.
Yep.
So you're allowing that not only within yourself, but it's coming out in your relationships with a man, where you are, like, for me, when I allow the receiving to come through, when I begin to receive from a man, my wounded part will come up and be like, okay, well, it's more of like I'm asking for permission, or I'm not really allowing myself to receive, because I still am trying to take in that masculine role of like, well, I want to provide the direction and the structure, and I want to do these things, and I'm like in that. So I love how you brought up that, yes, it is the giving and the receiving of the energy, and allowing yourself to surrender to the feminine energy of receiving, like even receiving compliments from somebody. Like allowing yourself to have a man open the door for you, or just to really that feminine energy of loving yourself is really going to play out, and then allowing the structure of the masculine to take direction and be that core energy. I love that. That's beautiful, because you have such a great relationship with your husband, which is really cool, because when you say you talk about feelings and emotions and vulnerability, I'm like, how did you get there? That's where I'm working.
A lot of trust.
You raise your feminine energy, and you trust. That's a huge one. What about you, Sam? What's feminine, the healing feminine energy? Because you came from the woman side.
I did. I'm trying to think here. So are you asking for examples of it present in my own life now, or are you asking for...
I think we're
things that
doing
I've-
the healthy masculine. Sorry.
Okay.
Not the feminine. I switched that a little bit.
That's okay. I was like,
I'm just trying to throw you for a loop, see if you're present.
Everyone's favorite topic. It's okay. Okay.
Healthy masculine or healing masculine.
Healing masculine. So, it's definitely a dichotomy of, what I saw growing up, but there always growing up, there was a big emphasis on being at the place that you said you were going to be at, being there on time and being prepared, kind of that attitude like on time is late, I don't want to hear your excuses. If you give me your word that you're going to be here, then I expect that from you. So you can see how as an adult that would, carry over into my own life, with whether it's like getting lunch with someone or booking a trip or something like that.
You're very organized. I love working with you because you have such a great structure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Erica will tell you anytime I want to hang out. I'm like, okay, so 3 months from Wednesday.
Let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and book a reservation. We'll be ready to go. Just let me know if you need to change the time, but you got to let me know at least a week in advance if you're going to change the time.
Hey, at least you're great. You're like, okay, send me a calendar invite for that. Everyone else is like, you're crazy. I'll talk to you about Monday.
I'll let you know if I'm going to hang out with you.
But I'd say I see that healing masculine come through when people flop or it feels like they're flaking or things really do come up, and I see myself naturally now leaning into that side of graciousness and of understanding, and of I would say like a greater allowance of love for people in general, as opposed to responding with that really hostile black and white. I'm trying to control the situation. I'm afraid of, I don't know. We could,
A, B, C,
yeah,
D.
we could, that would be its own podcast.
Insert wounded masculine here.
Instead offering, or being first inclined, to be like, you know what, I totally understand. I was there 2 weeks ago, and getting off, that high horse or this wounded tendency, if you will, to hold everyone to this standard as if, life is black and white or perfect, or that things don't go wrong, or that sometimes, people don't just need an extra day to rest or, fill in the blank. But I would say that that's probably where it's been most apparent in my life over the last couple of months. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's interesting because when I talk about masculine, like the healthy masculine, I attracted someone who is very, very has that. I mean, his polarity is definitely masculine. Like he has, he organizes things like the sexiness of putting together a structure, or he always has a plan for something, or
I got
your
birthday email invite for March 2023, 2 months ago, just for the record.
Yep, exactly. He's an organizer. He's a planner. It's really sexy. And what I've learned, and I've really taken this part of myself, like I've always had this confidence, but I think that the confidence has been kind of like a mask of like protecting myself. Yeah, whereas like when you're in your healthy masculine, that confidence just like is exuberant because you know who you are, you're ready to move forward, you have direction, you have purpose, you have the structure. And so being with someone like my husband is beautiful because he is also, or when we're in our masculine, we're in our thinking side of who we are, right? So it's the logic and the organization and the contemplation and the analyzing, but you can be overly wounded, right. So that can turn into wound if you're not also incorporating the feeling and the power and the intelligence of the body. And so I think a lot of the wounds has started with, putting mind over feeling and making this be the dominant right. structure, even though it's important and we all have that is where the confidence and that structure comes from. So that thinker side of who we are is that divine masculine. But if you're only using that, you end up becoming the mind. And then we know how tricky the mind can be if you're not listening to your intuition and allowing that feminine flow to be that direction as well. So I think that, masculine, being in our healthy masculine has a lot to do with the logical side, but also that intuitive, feminine,
Absolutely.
feminine, intuitive side.
That's the flow.
That is the flow. Yes,
Yep.
we have the flow in here. I also have, I know we talk about the masculine. It's, the right side of the body. It's really that like right side. The feminine's your left side of the body. Being in your masculine is really being, electric. So I like to think of like masculine energy is electric, whereas the feminine energy is magnetic. So the feminine is super powerful and it attracts, like when you're in your healthy feminine energy, you allow things to come to you. You understand, you feel something, we always talk about manifesting and, what are we putting out in our future? What is the universe? We always have our universal talk or God or having that higher source is really like letting life come to you, letting it unfold, and then also using your masculine energy to then create the structure around it and move forward. So what is the other part here? So feminine energy, when we talk about the healthy feminine, again, this is the feeler, right? The intelligence of the body. This is where we can see ourselves as powerful. And, the wounded feminine is whenever we see ourselves as weak, right? We look at ourselves weak. Or we look at our feminine energy, our role model of feminine energy, and seeing that as weak and seeing emotions as weak. And if you think about, our men and us suppressing that feminine energy, we're suppressing the power of the emotions, the power of the feeling part of our body. And we've always been programmed that way.
Yeah.
Because of I think it's just the fear of the power, or really redefining what this power looks like. So let's see. Let's kind of do a little shifting here. How would you describe how our masculine energy is most wounded? Like, where do you think? I mean, we've been in this over dominant masculine energy for well over 2,000 years on the planet. I would say.
Yeah.
So it is. Yeah, it's been happening. It just keeps being passed down and passed down. And like I said, with the energies moving in the planet, that is now we're going from the Pisces era into the Aquarian era. So all that comes with change and transformation and working with this energy to really transform and come together and bring community. But where would you say, if you can pinpoint anything, that would say like, okay, here's where I think that the masculine started to become wounded? Or I don't know if you guys have done any research on.
Do you mean like in the personal or the collective?
Oh, well, good question. Both.
I think in the collective, I think war has been a huge indicator that the masculine energy is very dominant. War, chaos, poverty, control, dominance, that has been going on for thousands of years, and it suppressed the feminine. But in the personal life, just dominance has been a huge indicator of the wounded masculine.
Having that control, going back to the control. Yeah, and if you think about our men and the suppressed side of them, you're right. We sent them to war.
Yeah. And
then now they're working with these new energies. And, if you've had someone who's gone to war, that energy, wounded masculine energy is still coming through. And it affects every single one of us. It doesn't just affect our dads and our brothers. And it affects the women who were abused, the dominance of the masculine feminine or the masculine energy, or the women who were raped. And,
right.
So it's just this energetic wound that we all just seem to have. And so as a collective, I think that is the work that we're doing right now, is the more that you can uncover and become aware of your own wounds and then retransform that. Not only when I'm growing and learning about this, I feel like it's helping also humanity. When you heal yourself, it's helping the rest of us and humanity, because we are more aware of that. And emotional intelligence is something that a lot of us we haven't learned about emotional intelligence. It's not something that they have in our public schools, or they have anything that's saying, hey, your body's just as important as your mind and the information that you're learning here. So I think that transformation is also really taking place as far as, how do we teach our children, our boys, that it's okay to cry? How do we teach our girls that it's okay to be confident and, not have those gender differences? You don't have to pick blue and pink. You can pick whatever you want. Right. And I think we had this conversation of like, because the feminine energy is coming up so much, that there is that confusion about gender.
Absolutely.
Like, who am I? I'm not, right. I'm neither fitting in this box of what masculine looks like or what feminine looks like. Like
I'm not
I think
manly
our children.
enough. I'm not womanly enough. What am I? Yeah.
and I don't know how to identify.
Exactly.
Like, but I know that I have these mixtures of energy that are going on. So our children are definitely, they're leading the way with this, their energy of really balance and, you know, figuring themselves out.
And we've never been taught that we have both energies within us. We've only been taught that you're either masculine and that's it, or you're feminine and that's it. Yeah, exactly. Pick one. Pick your identity. Who are you? But we can be both. Yeah.
Yes. Now. Right. Don't look elsewhere. These are your options, one or two.
Absolutely. No going back either.
So yeah, the warrior wound, I think that's a big one. Yep. You know, I have wars, violence, aggression, fighting, has really created this deep wound. And when you look at, obviously, when you divorce from the feminine energy, you can see the consequences of that, right? So our leadership has essentially suppressed and divorced this feminine energy, that instead of having a compassionate conversation about someone who has a different view than you,
completely absent.
Yes. It's like, nope, you pissed me off and now you're going to die.
Yeah.
And I have more power because I'm in the United States of America.
Right.
And
Or
that's
I'm
like our,
yell louder.
Yeah.
Talk
Yeah.
louder.
More aggressive. I have bigger bombs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
The other one that I have, obviously the suppressor wound, is one that we continue to bring up because I think we're so aware that when we're suppressing that side, again, the consequences of that suppression, the consequences of being imbalanced in your own personal life. So if you're imbalanced, that's going to create sickness. That's going to create the burnout, right? If we're not taking the time. And I think depression,
anxiety,
everything, addiction, like if you're not allowing that doer side of you, which is the healthy masculine, you're still doing, it's action. If you're not allowing the feminine energy of non-doing to if you're just suppressing that and you're just constantly doing, you're going to get sick.
Yep.
You're going to overdo it. You're going to burn out. And I think a lot of our men, when you look at even suicide rates from even last year that I happen to look, men are more likely to commit suicide. They're 4 times more likely to commit suicide because when compared to women.
Right.
They're the ones that are in like the jail system. There's like 70% in the jail system. Like they're the ones who are suffering from this idea that they have to live in this masculine box, and it doesn't feel good for them. They're not, when they get to a certain age, it's like, okay, now what? Now what do I do? I've been taught to be successful and achieve all this materialistic, you know, this is what was supposed to be valuable, and it's so empty.
Yeah.
That it's like, now who am I?
It's
like,
this
now what?
mentality of and never let them see you sweat. Right. So you can't just achieve everything. You also need to do so and make it look like a breeze. Right. Which
stoic.
Yeah. Like there's there's complete absence of emotion, which, as you had mentioned before, is the feminine part of, the whole energy spectrum, if you will. But yeah, and not to get controversial, but you can see it is in something that I think has touched a lot of our lives, even I'd say more recently than war, maybe more personally here in the United States. But we really don't have a lot of women who do violent things with weapons. But when you look around, like you mentioned, the suicide rates, we see that it's largely so much so that they don't even have statistics for women when it comes to firearm use, like the mass shootings. The FBI doesn't when it comes to women, because it's largely done by men. And I think that has something to do with not only having wounded masculinity, but also being just completely out of touch with the feminine energy in them at all.
And not having permission to do so.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it takes two, women are, it's not a one person show. We've encouraged throughout the decades and the centuries men to cover that up, to hide that up. We can't handle you falling apart emotionally. That's too much for us. Mm-hmm. You need to get it together.
You're the protector.
Yeah.
Be the protector.
If you're not okay.
Can't cry.
Right. And so what are you left to do after that, right? You can either be labeled as something and disconnected from your family that, and none of us as humans want to experience that kind of disconnection. Or you can zip it up, air quote, if you will, and try to hide it away. And but then what happens is you raise emotionally wounded children, and they go on to raise kids with the same
Emotionally
habits.
wounded children.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, we're a couple generations removed, and no one knows, how to, or even how to calibrate themselves. What is healthy masculinity or healthy femininity? So, I think it's...
And redefining and just bringing, I think that, I love having these conversations, especially with, women being so vulnerable and bold to talk about even their shit, where it's like, things are changing. And part of like what I stand to believe in is that it starts with us. Like we be the change that you want to see in the world. That is like who we are. And I think, again, I feel so passionate about being responsible for helping not only myself with my wounded masculine, but then also allowing my feminine energy to just rise up and learning how to play with her so much where I can influence my relationship with my husband, influence my relationship with my father, my brothers, like having that connection with them that I think that I've been so fearful of doing for so long because of the wounds that have been in place of not trusting, of not feeling that I can be vulnerable, of not being open, of not being able to communicate my feelings, and then blaming it on them, like it's their fault. Yes, like okay, I'm gonna meet you with my masculine energy.
Exactly.
I have learned does not work at all. so I'm taking a pledge to allow my feminine energy to rise and to learn to work with it and create more community. I think the feminine energy is a lot of that community and collaboration and intuition, and that is where the redefinition of power in my mind comes from. It's not material things and how many people you can control to get to do what you want. No. It's more about using that feminine energy to collaborate and make changes towards the things that we all want, not just what a select few want to do. Like it's really that collaboration in the changes within using the feminine energy. Another one that I wrote down here as far as like where does the wound come from? This has been one that has definitely been hard for me to become aware of, but I wrote down the undeserving wound.
Oh, yeah.
So when I am in my wounded masculine, there is a part of me that doesn't like, I know when I'm there because I don't feel like I deserve love. Like there's some reason or another that I'm just like not allowing love in. So again, not receiving love, right? So I throw up that wall of my wounded side is like, oh my gosh, I've done all this damage and here's what I've done to my feminine energy, and all these emotional roller coasters come up, but it really is understanding that that's a wound within me that I'm telling myself that I don't deserve this love from the feminine. I don't deserve this feminine love that's rising up within me, and that is reflected within my relationships with men, obviously, because I feel like I can connect with anyone, but when it comes to men, I'm a little more hesitant. Like, let me date you for a while. Let me be married to you for years before I can open up. All right, I think you might be safe. All right, we're good.
Well, and you don't feel worthy of love, and I feel like that's the root of addiction sometimes because you want to self-punish yourself.
And then you're looking for it in other places. Yeah. But it doesn't matter if love's right in front of you, if you're not letting the feminine energy receive it.
Right.
And you're constantly like, okay, no, I don't deserve it. You're going to be looking for it one way or another.
External.
That's who we are, is naturally, authentically love. Like we are that love bubble. And again, if you shut yourself off from that, I think that when we talk about the wound, whether it's masculine or feminine, really all that means is that you've cut yourself off from your own source. You've cut yourself off from your higher power. You've told yourself something that's not true based on the environment or your belief systems that you've acquired and the way that you have seen other people also. Like watching my parents and their marriage like has completely just provided this fear of wanting to be in a marriage like that, like wanting to be in a marriage that doesn't look like it's true love, and it just is like you're in it because you're supposed to be, and if you break this contract, then God's going to punish you,
right?
Or whatever the case is, it's like you stay in it because you don't believe that you deserve anything more. And so that's been really hard for me, looking at like this idea of what love is, and then really trying to understand, okay, what does it look like for me? Because I don't want to go down that cycle. Like that's a cycle I definitely want to break, is understanding and show Peyton, here's what love looks like from a divine masculine, a divine feminine, you know, both of us playing the role, being the receiver, being, you know, allowing my husband to be the giver, and really just creating that flow and structure and creating life together, I think is showing him how to co-create with even the opposite sex, or even just the power within myself.
Absolutely. And that cycle.
Yeah.
So let's talk, I want to kind of move towards, why is it important to heal the wounded masculine energy? And when I talk about healing, essentially what healing is to me would be harmonizing. Like you're harmonizing. And I'm not saying, I like to use the word harmonizing the masculine and feminine, because when we say balancing the masculine and feminine, I feel like you got to have a 50-50 equality, you know, going back into the gender portion. I think when we heal the wounded masculine, what we're really doing is just cleaning up the wounded masculine so that divine masculine can rise up, but also use that feminine, core feminine energy. Because if you're 60% core feminine, you're not going to lower your core feminine to get, you know, 50% with your masculine.
Absolutely.
So why would you guys say it's important, or is there the importance of even having a conversation like this, like getting this out to the public and having them listen to this? Like, what would you say the importance would be?
Well, I feel like when you heal that wound within you, you heal the collective, and you bring harmony to the world, and you become an example to your children, to your family, and you raise the vibration of the collective. You know, that's why it's so important to spread the word about healing every aspect of ourselves, and awareness, bringing awareness to, you know, you're not broken, but let's heal. Let's heal the wounds. Let's bring them up to the surface and heal them together.
Hey, everyone, you've also had your emotions suppressed, whether you know it or not.
All of you.
We're just bold enough to talk about it.
We're in this together. We're in this with you. Let's heal together, you know, consciously, collectively, together. We're doing it as one, as unity.
Yes, raising the consciousness of humanity, one soul at a time. What would you say, Sam? What would be your... Why is it so important to do this?
Yeah. I think that... you know, whatever you've experienced in life this far, there's more than that. And not just selfishly for yourself, but for our communities as a whole. And I don't think that we'll ever experience more individually or collectively if we don't pursue greater connectedness. And I think that only comes from what you're saying, that synergistic, what was the word you used? You said
harmonization.
Harmonization.
Not balance.
Not balance. I know they're all going through my head now. All the ones that
Words matter, right?
Yeah, they do, absolutely. That state of harmony. You know, if we don't pursue it. Yeah. So I want to be a part of more. I want to be a part of better, and I think that is how we get there.
Yes, awesome. And I think that you both kind of hit it together. Is really that fulfillment within yourself.
Right.
So if you're imbalanced with too much masculine or not enough feminine, and you're letting one lead over the other, it's going to be imbalanced and it's going to turn wounded. So if you're not aware of what it is and then how to harmonize with it, that's doing yourself a disservice, which we all know, if internally you're not fulfilled, externally nothing's going to make you can't buy enough cars, you can't have enough degrees, nothing's going to fulfill you like it is to balance and harmonize those masculine and feminine powerful energies within each of us.
Right.
So, and then also I always have, you know, mental and emotional health. I mean, look at our mental health statistics and everyone's emotional health. Like self-development is probably one of the biggest things that is on the rise right now, especially after COVID, especially after secluding people. The worst thing you can do to a soul is put them and seclude them, and not, because we are naturally connectors. So to cut that off and to really see the effects of that is really hard for our mental health, is really hard for our emotional health. But I think we've needed to hit this rock bottom in order to now rise up and say, okay, here's where I see where we can, you know, engage and communicate and grow with each other and heal ourselves, which ultimately heals the collective. And the more that we can get that wound out of here, the more that we can, you know, we don't need someone else to tell us where our power comes from, or someone else to dominate our behaviors and tell us what to do. We can bridge communities and work together and create something that works for all of us. So I love just the collective and the personal. The other part is how would you say, so I like this one because it's like, okay, here's the problem, here's what we see, here's what I've experienced. But how would somebody start to harmonize? Like how, I guess, let me ask it this way. How do you nurture your feminine energy, core energy? And same thing for you. Like, what are some things that you would do? What are some recommendations that you would give people? And I can kind of give you like meditation. I've always talked about meditation.
I guess it's going to look differently for everyone. Someone might not resonate with meditating or journaling or grounding in nature, but what works for you? How do you connect to yourself, to earth, to the universe, to God, whatever you want to call it? Find that connection, find that path to where it leads you to find your root self, your guidance system. For me, that's always been meditation. When I step into meditation, I instantly connect. But that also took a lot of practice. It wasn't
why do you
right
think
away.
it does though? Like why do you think meditating is valuable to the connection of yourself?
I think because you learn to let go of everything. You completely surrender and let go of all worry, doubt, expectations, that voice in your head that tells you you're not worthy, you're this, you're that. You start to silence everything. And in that silence is when you start finding peace and awareness and that unity within everything. So I think once you find what brings you closer to that self-awareness, and it could be painting, it could be yoga, it could be walking outside, it could be the ocean, whatever it is for you that brings you that peace, that silence, I think start there.
Nice. Yeah. Very well said. What about you, Sam? What would you say some of your feminine activities that...
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we're going back to the feminine energy or the heart of the feminine energy being feeling or part of it, it's cliche as it might sound, counseling.
Asking for help, the feminine.
We are, at least here in the States, blessed enough to live in a place where we can pay someone who is going to sit across from you, and it's a guaranteed safe place for you to express all of your feelings and then some, if that's what you need to do. If it needs to start with just something as basic as learning to get in touch with what you're actually feeling. I'm not sure if you've asked a room of people lately, how are you feeling right now? But you'd be shocked at the number of people who just don't have an answer. I don't know.
Like, I'm not allowed. What?
Yeah, but
feeling.
Fine.
Yeah.
Feelings are for pussies.
Yeah. Oh, I hate that word.
I know. And I said
We need to bring power to the pussy.
power to the pussy.
Okay. I'm going to sit that one out.
Uncomfortable.
But no, truthfully, go, call a couple different places. It is harder to get in, some more than others, and schedule a couple hours to sit across from someone and talk about how you're feeling. And if you can't do that, they'll walk you through it. They'll get you through it.
They will ask you questions to get in there.
More than,
Open
yeah.
up.
My encouragement there too is if the first time it's not what you want it to be, try someone else or try something else in terms of counseling somewhere else. Maybe, don't be discouraged by just one bad or one wrong fit. But,
and it's going to be uncomfortable, right? I started counseling years ago, and I just remember being like, I'm just angry
all the time.
I'm just angry. Help me with this.
And the first time you do anything in a long time is going to be uncomfortable. Like we talk about COVID happening, getting back into the gym. Like you go there, you don't expect yourself to, lift the same weights that you did 2 years ago or run a mile in the same time you did before, So get ready to be, like Erica said, made uncomfortable. But, for the sake of a better, I think, quality of life for you and everyone you love.
Yes, very well said. And I think, for me, getting out of whether it's my wounded masculine or my healthy masculine, when I am playing with more of my feminine energy and letting it rise up, I'm getting out of my head. And I think, you hit that with, I'm not logical. I need to be still. I need to be present. I don't need to plan for the future or keep thinking about my past. Like that to me is being present. Another big part of allowing the feminine energy to just be natural and nurture that would be gentle self-talk.
Yeah.
And you can even also see that with like even, my husband or even with my child or my father, like coming in with self-talk. You can see how it reflects when you're talking to someone or when you're when you're being gentle, but that voice that we have is that wounded, a lot of it is the wounded masculine of telling us we're not good enough, we're unworthy, self-doubt.
Yeah.
And so gentle self-talk for me has been something that I can do when I'm meditating, just to remind myself, like, you're confident, you're powerful, you're beautiful, you're a connector, and just reminding myself of who I am, gently, softly, loving, and that brings me a little bit more of that inner peace.
Yeah, words are powerful. They carry
Oh my
vibration.
goodness, yeah.
So,
and again, it's like a repetition, right?
Right.
You have to train. It's like a muscle. You have to train
Exactly.
yourself to start talking to yourself like this, and it's a reprogramming and rewiring.
Yep.
Because subconsciously we don't even know what we're saying to ourselves. It's just been repetitively in the mind, in the head. So we're rewiring the mind, rewiring the masculine to be more nurturing to our feminine, and not powering over our feminine, but nurturing to our feminine. Another big one for me, I am very much into massage and touch. I'm a physical toucher. My son loves when I tickle him. Like, I will just get lotion and just like rub on myself, and just having that physical touch. I love affection. I love, just anything where I'm touching and connecting is always a big one for me. Slowing down, taking a break.
yes.
Masculine energy is sexy, but if you're over in your doing and action, again, you're going to wound it and you're going to break down. So taking the time to realize that slowing down and having no action is just as important as your action and your doing, and really creating space to do nothing, creating space for yourself, creating space for your hike and getting into nature, creating space to cook. Allie's probably one of my friends that has the most sexy feminine energy, because she is her sensuality and her, I don't know what it is, just very emotional. Like, she is one of my emotional friends that I have, like, just kind of like, when I first met her, I just kind of attached to her, because I'm like, oh, I need more of that. How do you do? You could just cry and like express yourself? Man up. When I first met her, probably, but now I'm like, thank you. Nourishment. This is another one.
Yeah.
Allie is a big, she's really into the body and the intelligence of the body. And I think you do a really good job of listening to your body and providing that nourishment, and helping your friends to be like, you don't need to talk about, let me show you how to make this taste like this, but it's good for you. So I think honing into however you use that feminine energy to really nourish your body and really have that intimate relationship with your body, so that when you're masculine, when you're in your masculine, you're also, nourishing the side of yourself. Embrace receiving. I definitely allow myself to be told I'm beautiful, or, my husband just taking the reins on something and just being in complete gratitude and appreciation, not having to. I think in the past he would do something and then I'd feel pressure to do something too. And then he would do something and I'm like, okay, I'll plan this too. And I'm like, I don't feel like I feel like I need to be equal with you, instead of just being like, thank you so much for appreciating and doing these parts of, I'm going to do nothing right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to feel guilt about that.
Yes.
Forgiveness. That has been a big one, especially because when I learned that when I'm in my wounded masculine, I'm not deserving of love. There is a, what is it? The Ho'oponopono, who knows this one? Ho'oponopono prayer.
Oh, no, it's a different one.
Ho'oponopono prayer. It's the reminding yourself, there's four parts to it, which is I love you, I'm sorry,
Yes.
please forgive me, and thank you. And you can just sit in a meditation and say that over and over and over. And what it does, it just, like, for me, it just softens my masculine side, and it allows my feminine side to be like, I love you, I forgive you. Like, yeah, you have suppressed me and you didn't know any better. Like, it's kind of like me talking to my father, but it really is me talking to myself of like, it's okay to let the feminine energy rise up and not feel guilty for that. And then I think the other bullet points is really expressing my emotions more by understanding my emotions. I think everyone in here knows that I'm so passionate about emotional intelligence, because I've learned so much about myself, learning how I'm feeling right now. And if I'm being sad, like, it's okay to be sad. And what is my sadness telling me? What is the desire that I want, that I don't want to suppress, that I want to look at? And so staying in my tears and my sadness is such a healthy part of me nourishing my feminine energy. And 2 years ago, if you would have asked me this, I would have tried to suck up my tears and, really just not show the emotion because I still had that wound of like, you don't want to be inconsiderate with people. So you don't want to cry in a room. You don't want someone asking you like, are you okay? Is something wrong? Right? Because when someone's crying, it's like, let me give you a hug and tell me like, is something wrong? Like tears don't have to be wrong. It's just like, no, I'm feeling. And, I've been going through conflict at home and my son, I've just been crying in front of my son. He's like, Mom, and he wants to fix it, right? Masculine. Mom, how can I help? How can I fix it? I'm like, I'm just sad. Like my heart hurts. I'm sad. I'm thinking, I'm just going to cry and it's okay to cry. And so when he cries, I just remind him like, it's okay to cry. Get out your feelings. This is important. This is healthy for you. So I help nurture his feminine side dramatically when it comes to emotions. Cause I'm like, I'm breaking the cycle. Laughing, I think, is important. Being spontaneous is nurturing your feminine side. And really cherishing your own beauty. So if you don't look at yourself and remind yourself of how beautiful each one of you are on a regular basis, I would say, again, that's like a muscle that needs to be repeated. And it's got to be a repetitive thing that you continue to rewire yourself and consider it allowing your feminine energy to rise. And I think that that's very important for especially the women on this planet who are really leading the way with your feminine energy. If you're a core feminine energy, again, it's your responsibility to lead with it and show people how to use that love and compassion and togetherness and community. Impact that women can have on this transition. Again, I think that this is like our responsibility to show what it looks like to be love. And be that light, right? Yeah. Be the shining light. Yeah. But I think that is, any other comments or anything that we want to add for just kind of the masculine, feminine that you don't think that we have hit on or that you feel is important to bring up?
Well, another feminine energy that I think we've lacked is the need to feel safe. We haven't felt safe, and I think that's very important because safety is a very feminine energy, and when your masculine is wounded, you don't feel safe in your environment, in your relationships, in the world. So we have to just...
So you don't connect.
You don't connect. Yeah, you don't trust. So learning how to feel safe again in the world will also bring that, feminine energy and polarize with the masculine, and you won't need the masculine energy to make you feel safe anymore. You'll just feel safe on your own. But you'll bring out that protector within the masculine too, from your partner or friends or whoever it is. You'll attract that duality within you.
That's
and
beautiful.
Another one is the pleasing energy. The feminine needs to please. They need to be pleasers. When you give too much of that pleasing energy, you're giving yourself away. But when you learn to balance that or bring harmony to the pleasing, you do it out of love and caring and respect. And you get that back. There's with the same thing, a duality of pleasing.
The reflection.
It's the reflection. I please you, receive, and it's this energy exchange that we give.
And it feels so good to service others.
Yeah.
Like that is just our natural state of being. But like you said, it can turn into a wound if you're not accepting something, and not expecting to have, to receive, but like just allowing that reception without having to pay them back or, it's okay to be in debt to someone. I think my mom, I get that where she's like, I don't like to be in debt to people. Like if they buy me something, I'll buy them something back. If they, it's like, I don't want to have that debt. I don't want to owe you anything. Yeah. So that's wound, that's, you can see how that's wounded because you're not just letting someone love on you.
Exactly.
You're not just letting, just give them gratitude, give them appreciation. That's thank you. It's just a fine way of saying I accept, I accept this energy.
Yeah.
I'm feeling safe. How do you know when you're feeling safe?
How do you know? Wow. That's a good question. I think when you just feel in your space, you feel harmony, you feel joy. You're not fearful of anything around you. You're just present without doubts, without needing something from anyone. I don't know. That's
a good way of putting it, though.
Yeah,
it's
a really
threw
hard.
You a dinger. Yeah, so I'm like, well, how do I feel safe?
I was trying to figure out what that feels like to me, but just when I'm at home and everything is in harmony and everything is beautiful and flowing that feels safe to me. It just, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a hard one.
I mean, I think you said it because you're not
Yeah.
living in fear. You're not
Right.
having those, you're not allowing the logical mind to tell you like, oh my gosh, there's someone over there, or there's something here, or,
Yeah.
you know, is my partner mad at me? Should I feel guilty? Should I, you know, it's like that inner voice that if you're nurturing your feminine side of you, you know that your mind isn't everything. Like your mind are just
Right.
thoughts. And so you don't have to constantly be your thoughts. You can listen to your body. You can use the intelligence of your body to receive those messages that you need to in order to get a full perspective of what's happening around you without
Yeah.
it being fight or flight.
Right. There you go.
You don't have to go to fight and flight. But it is important to have those emotions.
Yeah.
Sam, what about you? Anything?
I think just as a friendly reminder that we like this is going to take both sides of the aisle. This is going to take an effort from men and women in terms of, you know, pursuing the healed or a healing masculine. I don't think it's something that women can do on their own, and I don't think that it's necessarily something that men are going to be able to achieve on their own either. So I'd say just to keep that in mind in, you know, your pursuit of a healed masculine or a healing masculine energy within you.
Yes, well said. Very well said. Yes, it is all of our responsibilities. We are all in this together. So we don't want one without the other, because I think we've tried that in the past, and you can see the destruction and the chaos that has happened. So even though there's more of that pendulum that has swung to the feminine energy, it's important to realize that it's not because we want to get rid of men or that we don't want that masculine
Absolutely.
energy.
We
We realize that it's the importance of the masculine energy, because that's what helps solidify and feel completed and full.
Yes.
So, yes. Well, ladies, I appreciate your voices today and the collaboration and just the energy and boldness of being vulnerable. Your vulnerability is beautiful, and I'm going to go ahead and close this one out. But until next time, everyone, thank you for joining us in our live studio audience over here. We have Adrienne, Allie, and Liz. So thank you for your support and your energy. And I hope this was wonderful. I hope this was beneficial for everyone of just understanding
for sure.
how do we take the stance on our own. It starts with us first to harmonize our own energies of the masculine and feminine. So hope this was helpful. And we are in this together, y'all.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Namaste.
Namaste.